If you didn't get the memo, the thing that is, I think, interesting is that in our one bad review of the book, one of the things that the reviewer was upset about was how this didn't organize into a story in the way Spoon River Anthology is. That it becomes sort of like a gossip of the town, that you learn something in one story that then gets picked up in another. I like the total alienation that each one who is speaking thinks they're in the middle of the world, but it's a very Midwestern feeling that we think that, though we don't talk about it because we're very humble, we think that we're in the heart of the country. But at the very same time, we know we are also in the middle of nowhere. And so it's that paradox that makes the Midwest and makes for a kind of Twilight Zone journey through this book. Everything gets reset in a lot of different ways. I have to remind you that you're not too far from a continental divide. You know the big continental divide, which is out in the Rockies, right? The water on one side goes into the Pacific, the water on the other goes into the Gulf of Mexico. But right about where Winesburg is a continental divide. Rain falls on the east side, it flows into the Atlantic. Rain falls on the west side, it flows into the Gulf of Mexico. And it's a matter of 10 feet. Just 10 feet either way. So that's the sort of subtle disturbance in the field that I think Winesburg does. So I'm going to end with another piece that I did. And kids, I know you love the late French continental theory. Who doesn't? So we have a visitor in Winesburg, a guy named, you know him, you love him, you probably collect the trading cards. This guy is Jacques Derrida. Do we know this? Yeah. What? It's the 90s. It's so 90s. It's so 90s. And he's visiting Winesburg, Indiana. And this will conclude, and then I think afterwards, if there's a little time, you know, if you want to ask us questions about this mysterious, wonderful place, we'll be happy to do that. And thank you very much for coming out tonight. It's great. And I'm glad you also put out the porta potties, you know, so everybody is covered that way. Jacques Derrida writes postcards to himself from a diner in Winesburg, Indiana. I am not the first French writer to venture into the heart of the American interior. It was de Tocqueville, an inspector of prisons, who became distracted by the American character, finding at its heart a stability for the time crafted by an obsession with equality and its jettisoning of rank, title, primogeniture, and the other trappings of aristocratic landed elites. Beneath such skins, in other words, were other words. Take this on, by the way, there's a lot of punctuation here, and so I'm going to have to do a little punctuation dance to sort of give you the sense of the quotation marks in the parentheses. Okay. Take this sandwich, for instance. It is an amalgam of the raw and the cooked, a sign for both the great leavened, leveling flatness of the culture nurtured on a denuded glacial plain, and its assertion of its ness. It is known as John's, after the proprietor of this bistro, Awful Awful, a diminutive of awful big, awful good. It is considered here to hold the highest of rank in the hierarchy of sandwiches, said to be the sandwich's sandwich, in the same way one can be a writer's writer. This is an application of democracy, after all, at once stratified, but also in its bund variant, equilateral in its expression of difference and conformity. Le pain, the bun, is the architectural quotation of the dome, the English pan of verbal and visual pun, as well as literally vexed and convex structure of the bun's upper segment. The vaulted space that parenthetically arches over all uniformity and simultaneity. Elections are held for such sandwiches, I am told by the waitress. And here, in an enabling parasitic text attached to the menu, I discover that this particular breaded pork tenderloin has, on several occasions, been garnered the award as best in the fairs of several Midwestern states. Significant is that the meat puck be peened flat first to within an inch of its life, its footprint allowed to expand before the application of the breading. That is to say, the meat is sandwiched by its own dermis of adhesive dough before said sandwich is sandwiched by the aforementioned sandwiching conventionally yeasted bun. Beyond the edges of the circular boundaries of the bun, and beyond and in the continuous beatings and poundings known locally as tenderization, in all directions expanded to a slime smear, a skid of flesh, even beyond the limits, and this is crucial, in the sense of crossed, of the ceramic plate or platter that frames the whole meat delivery device. The massive flatness of the tendered loin is made even more evident by the rigor of the deep, emphasis mine, fat frying of the dead, though still elastic and recently stretched flesh into the consistency of plied wood. The now encrusted cutlet is meant to expand, theoretically, horizontally beyond the surrounding event horizon of the plate, and eventually the place itself. As I unhinge the bun in order to dress the sandwich with additional limpid veneers of a single lettuce leaf, a thinly sliced slice of pickle, a squeeze bottled skim of yellow wash paste mustard, I realize that the compacted, tenacious loin is a kind of mirrored, reflecting not me so much as the surface of me, Derrida. For even more exact, the tenacious loin is a kind of anti-mirror, not reflecting so much as absorbing light into the striations of its now heat-induced, chemically altered coatings. Not a skin so much as the scrim that adheres to the skin, a scum on the smooth surface of a pond that in its flatness, both in the dimensionality and optical calibrations, argues against even the concept of depth. A skin's skin. The sandwich itself is constructed out of empty words, empty calories wrapped in its whiteness, the absence of color, white bread, the self-sandwiched as sandwich, not a prison of walls, but of floors, sandwiched together. The sign I, and the signifier for I, the I, collapse, the serifed capital on top, pancaking upon the serif at the foot. The middle stuffing compresses ground to grout, the whole thing reduced to a line, an underlined, a line the thickness of this postal card, the depth of this stamp, the stamp's intaglio image of an American author, made of etched and stippled lines, the slick spit of my lick of my tongue positioned between the stamp, as in to press down, and the card with its inscribed an inscription of surface of place, and with it, future postmark tattoo to be absorbed into this skimmed skin. So thank you.